write them down during the talk. We'll do a Q&A at the end. And with that, let's welcome to the stage, Mark Warnick.
I was made for this. Yeah, yeah. I was made for this. I was made for this.
Woo! We made it to the end. All right. So a decade ago, I was sitting right over here, and it was my first time at Circles. It was the first time being around other creatives. And as I sat there, the energy in the room was electric. And I had this feeling hit me that I would be on this stage one day. So pardon the pun, but this is coming full circle for me. All right, so I have a question for you. Will it have made a difference you were here? We're here together, we have this energy, and there's this excitement in the air. But we're about to head back home, where we get back to our lives and our daily rhythms and routines. And it's easy for that inspiration to fade. So for me, it just didn't fade. That was a launching point. As I was getting to the end of my 20s, I began to have these mental shifts happening. And a really interesting thing happened when I turned 29. I woke up. I woke up to life and realized that I had been living on autopilot, and that I'd let society and the world around me dictate so many of my decisions. This catapulted me into layers, understanding myself. And I found myself realizing that there was these mile markers in my life that I had thought and been taught that once I reached these marks, that you'd be able to live a happy life, right? So graduating college, getting a good job, getting married, having kids, getting a house. And I found myself having met all these milestones, and I was happy. I had a happy life. But there was this feeling, and I felt unfulfilled. And I was confused. I was conflicted. I was trying to figure out, what is this? And it led me to realize that I was taught to live a stranger's life. That these milestones that were told how to live a life that I would like, I lived them, and I felt something missing. And I started asking all these questions. What does it even mean to be successful? What does it mean to me? What is success? What of any of the last decisions that I've made were my decisions? And this led me layers and layers down into understanding myself. So I really believe that success happens internally, years before it's ever recognized externally. So this process of waking up launches you down layer by layer into understanding deeper parts of yourself. And this moment was really launched a personal renaissance for me. And I found myself never identifying as a creative and waking up and realizing that I wanted to try a lot of stuff. Who was I? And so I was trying all kinds of things. So I'm traditionally an engineer. I started trying to write apps and putting in an app store, doing consulting, doing photography, doing videography, like everyone, making websites and designing websites and building them for people. I even made a letterpress out of a car jack and was trying to do letterpress. In that process, I came across a magazine called Kinfolk. It was the first time that I had seen a magazine that looked like a piece of art. And I was so taken by this, and I wanted to be part of it. So I started trying to get into published by indie magazines. And I wasn't even getting responses. I wasn't even getting no's, so I knew I wasn't getting to the right people. And in this process of discovering a bunch of stuff, I ended up coming to Circles. And in my process, so Circles really brings together this incredible energy. And I found myself from that first day so inspired that I couldn't even sleep. And that night, I was just churning in my head all these different ideas, and I said, wait, I don't have to wait for someone else to publish me. I can publish me. And so with that energy, I was like, I can make my own magazine. And so I got up and I actually wrote these things that was in my head, different ideas that I had, wrote the first article. And you know what I did the very next day? I just didn't stop. I was so energized by that action of getting up and writing. I woke up the next day and I was like, I don't know how long this is going to take, but man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to take an hour a day, every day, until I publish this. And so that's what I did. I would get up every day and I'd work piece by piece, working on this idea of publishing this indie magazine. And after a full year of working on this, I published the volume 30 of the freebie magazine. And you know what I did the very next day after I published that? I just didn't stop. Again, I was so energized by this action of creating, and it was something that made me feel alive. And as I was doing this, as I was creating the magazine, the first volume, I was 30 at the time, and I realized my dad was 30 when he had me. And again, going layer by layer, understanding myself, I started to say, what was it like, what would it be like to talk to my dad at 30? But not as my dad, as a coworker or a friend. What were the things that he saw coming? What were the insights that he had learned? And this journey was like really opening me to this idea of I don't have to wait until I'm older to write about when I'm younger. That's what you see a lot of times. So I was like, okay, I'm going to take this, and it's going to be every year I'm going to write about and put together all of the things that I did that year. And so I've been working on this for the last decade, and each volume of the magazine follows a year in my life. So 30, 31, 32. I'm currently 39, so that's the one I'm currently working on. And this is really important because for me, when I was in that personal renaissance, everyone was saying, you just gotta find one thing, and you gotta do it really well, and that's how you make money, and that's how you're successful. And I was like, well, wait a second, I just realized that I was great. I don't want to do one thing. And so I was too excited to do too many things, and I was frustrated. I didn't want to pick one. And the magazine allowed me the latitude to be able to explore all the creative sides of me. And so throughout the year, I kind of pulled together different writings and insights and intuitions that I have. Actually, over the years, I kind of tweak and put stuff out, and then at the end of the year, I put it all together, and then I start to see where the different insights come together, and that's kind of how I build. Now that's my process, but originally I didn't have that. So I'll have writings, the layouts designs, again, photography, publishing my work, and again, all the stuff that I did within that year. Different layout designs and being able to explore that side of me. Digital art that I created throughout the year. So this one, The Struggle to Make Art, was actually a YouTube video that I created. And as I was making the magazine, I kind of turned this into a digital art piece and then put that into the magazine. So it's constantly just like creating off of my previous work. And then watercolors and different kind of arts. It has my poetry throughout the year, and then it comes all together in a physical print magazine. So my day job, I work on digital products, and so I wanted to be able to do a physical print, like something you can tangibly hold in your hand. And I got to design not just the magazine itself, but also the shipping materials and the experience of opening a magazine, handwritten notes to every magazine I've ever shipped. So these touches were all pieces of my art as I was living. And so now, a decade in, and I've been able to do so many creative projects from this. So this kind of launched me into a bunch of side projects. But one of the ones I really want to talk about that was really cool was I got to design a children's book for Storybox. And I did a full YouTube video on this that you can watch and breaks down and goes into more detail. But I really think this is a really great example of following that feeling and following and leading into yourself. And the way this kind of came about is I had someone reach out and they're like, I really love what you're doing. Where do I get a copy? So I was like, oh, cool. Kind of chatted back and forth, gave my website, ordered a few copies. I didn't need anything together. I was like, that was awesome. I love that. And then a few months later, I got an email from them saying, hey, I run Storybus. I just bought some of your magazines, and we're trying to make a children's book. And as I was looking at your magazines, I thought you'd be a great designer for this. Now, I was never looking to publish a children's magazine, nor did I ever think that my magazine, well, that makes sense putting it as a children's. Like, nothing that I was doing correlated to this project. But what happened was he took my work and had work that he needed to do, and he made this connection and said, hey, do you want to collaborate? Do you want to work together? And so by me following that intuition and digging deeper into myself and doing my art, it actually unlocked other projects that I couldn't have if I would have tried. I never would have known this person. I never would have, if I would have tried to apply to this, he wouldn't have known me, he wouldn't have hired me. But me doing my work, it's serendipitously getting in front of him and offering this opportunity to me. And there's a lot of other opportunities like that. But coming back to this and looking at looking at this whole decade, I started to see these eras that kind of started coming out. So real quick, 3V is actually French for 3 lives. And the concept is that if you live your life intentionally, you can accomplish 3 lives in 1 lifetime. And as I was looking at the last decade, I realized that there's really 3 distinct eras that kind of come into my work. So this first one was really the foundation. It was, first and foremost, my journey of learning how to live life intentionally. Right? The waking up and finding this thing that I love and then exploring all the sides of me. All the things that I love, but also all those dark and scary parts. Going deeper and deeper, layer by layer, uncovering these pieces of me. And it was also like this journey of, like, I want to create a product. I want to create a brand that I can manage over a time period. I want, like, it was, how do I do the photography and the layouts? And once I got to 32, I really had locked a lot of stuff in. But I want to take a step back and point out this insight. The years 8, 9, and 10 in our decades are transitional moments for us. Right? 8, 9, and 10 get you ready for teen years. 18, 19, 20 is when we're shifting into our 20s. Right? And then 28, 29, this personal renaissance for me. So I had one for 30, and that's the last decade that I'm working on. But back up several years, and that exploration, that mental shift that I was talking about, when I start to wake up and say, who am I? This is something that you need to do at every decade. You're a new person, and you have to come to know yourself and who you are now. We get stuck thinking who we were, and I know I've talked to my mom who's in her 70s, and she said, look in the mirror, I don't know who this person is. I think it's really important that as we're living our life, that we're connecting deeper and deeper with ourselves and who we are now, understanding that transition that's happening in our lives. So the next era that I was kind of going through was, I thought I had done a lot of work, and I was like, man, that was deep. Now I can take it easy. And right after that, I started to go in the deepest part of my life. I went through separation and divorce. And I remember saying to my therapist, I don't think I'll ever be okay. And it was the hardest, darkest moments of my life. And I've never been suicidal, but going through this journey, I understand it. I really get, like, going to those deepest parts of yourself. But one thing that I'll say that's really important is I didn't, like, shrink away from the very beginning when I saw this happening. It's easy to, like, want to move past it and not think about it and do other things to keep you occupied so you don't have to think about it. But by going head first into it and going to those deepest parts of myself, I was able to turn, knowing that I felt like I could never be okay, I ended up, over the years, I remember I was sitting in my therapist's office, and I said for the first time out loud, there's nothing I need to be happy right now. And so going from the deepest, darkest parts of my life, I was able to understand different parts of me. For the first time I realized that I like me. I like who I am. I like how I am. I know I'm not for everybody. I'm for me. Being able to have this unlock where I woke up and at the beginning of the day, I've already won. This is incredible. Like this feeling that happens when I'm going so deep that I learn how to love being me, being with me. And this was the most incredible thing for me. I realized that most people will live their whole lives and never experience this feeling. And I was in my early 30s. I'm going to live my whole life over 3 times. And some people live their full life and never feel this. I have so much time to enjoy this fulfillment. And I realized that you have to learn how to be yourself, by yourself, for yourself. That was my journey. Learning how to be myself, by myself, for myself is the greatest unlock. Nothing can get you after that. It's just like, I get to be me like this again? Game on, let's go. This is exciting. Oh my gosh. Every day I get to wake up and do this thing. It's incredible. And so, that also, it led me to turn my thoughts from how I was learning to live life intentionally. I started looking around and going, how are other creative people doing this? How are they navigating life? How are they making decisions? And so I started reaching out to other creatives, and it wasn't about what they looked like or their title or the accolades that they had, anything like that. It was how their mind worked, how they made decisions to be able to craft a life that they enjoyed. I found this part about me, and I wanted to figure out how are other people doing this too. And so I started interviewing them. And part of this is I have 3 kids, and I recognize that they're young, and I realize that they're not at the stage to really want to learn a lot from me. But I thought at some point they're going to turn 30 and go, what was Dad doing at 30? And I wanted to show them that there's no one way to live a life fulfilled, to create a life that you love. There's so many paths, there's so many ways. And this was one way to be able to show, like, I have my path, but there's so many other paths that show different perspectives. And all together, we can see different ways. Take the things that are great for you, but then build that for you. What's that life that you want? The next era after that I'm in currently, this was the first time that I started shifting my look forward. So in all the other previous magazines, when I get to the end of the year, I look back at all the stuff that I created and I go, what was that year like? And that would start to kind of create the themes and the titles. And this was the first time that I started to look forward and to project I was coming out of this really dark era and excited about what's happening. So this is actually a trilogy that I'm creating right now. So I'm in the middle of it on 39, but 38 was looking, 39 is forward, and 40 is to the future. So looking forward to the future. And I'm in, again, 8, 9, and 10 eras, right? Like these numbers, I feel this transition into this new decade for me. And it's exciting what I want to do for the brand. I'm doing an actual show, gallery, that actually is going to have a fashion show with it next year. And the designs are changing. I want to start integrating more artists' voices. And so from the company standpoint, there's a lot of shifts happening, but also going deeper and deeper, layer by layer, into myself, I'm finding out all these other pieces of me and finding out who I am as I transition into this next era of my life. So I spent the last decade working on this, and it really is a great moment to be able to look back and see over the lifetime, over the last decade, the work coming together as a whole collective piece. When I was creating the first magazine, 130, I thought, man, it'd be really great. I want to do the first one. It'd be really great to do this for my 30s. And then as I was doing that, I realized that it won't be for another decade before people understand kind of what I'm working on. And then another decade after that, before they really see it, and I have the ability to shift into where I really want to go. And so being able to have that foresight of not just one decade, but 2 decades forward, to me was like I'm halfway through it. So I'm at this point where I'm now seeing, like I'm able to look back, and I'm starting to look forward, and it's a really exciting moment. And I don't talk about this so that I'm not saying anyone should go out and make their own magazine. I personally don't recommend it. It is extremely difficult to do. Like doing a print magazine in a digital era, you're trying to talk to people like, that's cool, but like, why? Like, I don't know. I don't know why, but I love it. I love it so much that I get up and I keep working on it. And so over this decade, I've been able to see 3 key principles that you can apply into your life to be able to craft the life that you always wanted. And so the first principle is the most important. Principle 1 is when you feel inspired, you have to act. Remember I talked about that first day at Circles, couldn't sleep, and I got up and I wrote that first article. And that ability to move inspiration to action is everything. It is everything. Learning how to feel connected with yourself. This is your subconscious converting into your conscious. Learning those signals and understanding how to communicate with you is everything. That's the foundation. Coupled with that is to create daily rhythms. So remember, the next day I woke up and I said I'm going to take an hour a day, every day, until I publish. This idea of daily rhythms to give energy to the ideas you want to grow. You have these concepts, this new thing that you haven't done or you want to explore. You have to give energy daily. This has to be a daily ritual because otherwise you're stuck in your current daily rituals. Injecting new is what allows time to be able to shift you in that direction. We'll go with this one. So the third one is to find a process you love. Find something that you love more than money, and it'll fuel you 100-fold and give you back 100-fold. A lot of people would argue that you want to find your process, and then you kind of get into this. And my whole point with the way I set this up is that it builds on itself. So you don't wait till you find the process you love. You start creating. You do it daily. And then along the way, you find something. So remember, I was in that personal renaissance, and I was doing a bunch of different things. And then I stumbled upon this print magazine thing that I just love. It just makes me feel alive. So what is that process for you? Try a bunch of things and find that thing that makes you feel alive, and then follow it. So I have a bonus principle. Start to think in decades. And this ability to learn how to shift between micro and macro visions is what allows you to take that process that is now sustainable and to grow it and to have a larger impact. So this ability to say, to be in the day-to-day, making things, and then step back and see how those actions lead to that macro vision of where you're trying to go. And it's a constant, remember, I was doing the first magazine and I said, I want to do this for a whole decade. So as I'm doing that first one, I'm trying to figure things out. I'm also saying,
how is this going to be cohesive in a decade's work? In a collection over a decade? Are these actions, how do they scale back? And so this shift between micro, macro visions is really what allows you to take ideas and evolve them to have greater impact. A great story about this, to give perspective, is my daughter, in third grade, came home and was just in tears that she had missed a homework assignment. And she was crying and never going to graduate third grade. And I said, listen, I love you so much. That homework assignment, you're not going to care about it next week, let alone next month or next year. Being able to shift back and recognize that they're not going to back from third grade, let alone not graduating high school, right? So being able to, because we all get trapped in these where emotionally we're churning by things that really, when you step back, don't have meaning in that longer vision. And so being able to have this this ability to step back and see that decade of work, it also allows the noise to drop significantly. Do I need to worry about this? No, it's just in the moment. Okay, now get back into the day-to-day and working. So these are the principles that you can use to be able to start crafting the life that you always want. Really what these principles help you build is your own way for navigating life. And that's what I started interviewing other creators about. How do you navigate life? What are the systems? What are the decisions that you make? And then the patterns that you create. Right? And it's so enticing to be able to take someone's system and be like, well, I want to be like that. I'm not going to take their system. Awesome. Find their things, pull in the pieces that resonate with you, and use it, pull it in to craft your own system for navigating life. I promise you, the life you want is found in discovering your own path, not following someone else's. That feeling that you have to follow it. And quietly craft the life that you love over time. So again, I want to ask you this question. Will it have made a difference you were here? For me, it did. For you, you have the opportunity to go back in your lives and to take this with you. Everything that I talked about over the last decade came from my moment here at Circles. And so the last thing that I want to say is just don't wait. Live life intentionally. Start today to craft the life that you've always wanted. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Good work. Thank you. Your hands should be sweaty, not mine. Sorry, my hands are so sweaty all the time. Hi, we're going to do some Q&A, not about our hands. About the talk. Any questions that we have? Again, those of you adjusting your hair, give it 10 seconds after asking Q&A. It's stressing me out. Yes, we have one back there. Go ahead.
Have you ever experienced burnout? And if so, how did you overcome it?
That's a great question. I think I'm trying to figure out how to answer that because it's like it comes back to like finding a process that you love. So I think burnout is a way of yourself communicating with you, saying, "Hey, pump the brakes." And so that's when you start asking questions and saying, "Is this a moment that I pause? Do I really love this? Do I want to keep doing it?" Maybe it is like for the magazine, I keep doing it, but like I said, there was a lot of things that I did that the inspiration just wouldn't keep coming, and I wouldn't keep working on it. So the burnout, I don't think is a negative thing in a sense that it's just understanding yourself that do you want to keep it's a moment of check-in. Do I want to do this? Like it's your choice. Like, no one's telling you. Well, most of the time it's something that you pursue. So that's how I explain it. Instead of I think one of the big things you have to do is kind of unemotionalize things, and so being able to step back instead of saying burnout's negative or positive, which we do on our Western culture a lot, is it good or bad? Being able to step back and say, what's the message here? What am I saying to me? How do I get in tune with that? Do I keep going with this? Do I take a break and then come back to it? So I think, yeah, that's how I describe it, is there's a lot of stuff that stops, and it's that check-in point to keep going.
Anyone else? Yes, right down here only because you're on the aisle, and then we'll come over here. Oh, no, oh yeah, audible, okay. Go in here and then back over there.
Hello. I really relate to the idea of wanting to try everything, like wanting to do so many different things as a creative when we're told to just do one and master it. How do you, as you're kind of shuffling through these different things, how do you hold yourself, or how do you not get frazzled, I guess is the question. Because I feel like when we're trying this thing, and then we're moving to this thing, and then we're moving over here, there's so much going on, and it's easy to kind of get into that burnout. So how do you kind of tackle that?
I think this is a great example of why that thinking in decades is really important. Because when you step back and go like, I got a decade, I don't have to figure this out right now. It allows that, the frazzleness is like, I have to figure something out. You can step back and be like, why? Like, I'm just exploring at this point. Like, let me find it. So I would say, like, in those moments, two things. One, step back and give yourself recognition that, like, this is over the next decade. I've got time. Like, or the next year. Like, being able to step back out of that. And then also, I think a lot of times when we have this, like, creative frustration, it might also be that you need to create something. Like, that might be a kind of signal to you. For me, if I'm feeling frustrated or creatively, like, I create. I think there's so much consumption, and we have to counter that with creation. So that's how I would answer it.
All right, we have one more that was over on this side.
Thank you guys for staying all the way, by the way. I really appreciate it.
Hi.
Hi.
I was the ages of 18 through 20, between the years of 2019 and 2021. And as we know, in 2020, there was a little virus that kind of wrecked everything. So do you have any advice for somebody who's like just starting college and they got kind of kicked out for that little virus, feeling like they kind of missed out on something super formative in their life?
That's a great question. First, I think I would say, like, you didn't miss anything. Like, you're still in your life. Like, again, it's a long journey. So we feel like we have to figure things out. I still don't feel like I figured things out. So I think that's the first thing. So your question was like, what are advice for what's exactly the question? I don't think I answered it.
It's like, I don't know, I feel like I kind of lost myself in those 3 years where we were kind of just huddled in our own homes, and I don't know that I fully like figured out where to go from there and how to find myself again, honestly.
Yeah. I think this is one of those things, again, like layer by layer, like follow that feeling. Right? That I don't have the answers. You actually have the answers. This is the thing that I want everyone to realize. You're successful at creating the life you have right now. Like, understanding that, like, the life you have, whether you love it or hate it, you are successful at creating this, and you can systematically and minute by minute, day by day, create the new life that you want. So you're right on time to follow that. And by the way, don't be worried if that comes back or if that stays over a long time. Like, we all go through this. We all have that feeling. I have that feeling. Like this is things that we work through, and it's, you don't have to say, I have these feelings inside, how do I get them to stop? I'm probably going to feel this again because it's cyclical, right? We're going to go through these ebbs and flows, these seasons of life. And it's okay to be in that season. Like I talked about in my late 20s being in this personal renaissance. I feel that same way now in my late 30s, right? 38, 39, I'm in this new renaissance of rediscovering different parts of me because you're always becoming something new. So I don't know if that helps, but I hope so.
Cool, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.